Hi there everyone, it's Josephine here from Bespoke Stories. Thank you so much for checking out my channel today. Now if you've clicked on this video, you probably want to find out a bit more about my service, the Bespoke Stories. So what's included in that story once you purchase it is I'll send you a questionnaire to find out all the important information about your little ones. Once I've then received that, I'll write their story, perform it and send it to you for you to keep forever. Today's story is about Olivia and Ronnie, who are my competition winners, and I've been given permission to share their story with you. I hope you enjoy it, and I look forward to writing your story for you very soon. Bye! Hello, Olivia and Ronnie. I hope you're as excited as I am about this story. Now, are you sat comfortably? You are? Oh, fantastic! Well, let's not waste any more time. Let's get on with the story. Olivia and Ronnie loved exploring the woodlands surrounding their house. They loved it so much, they went every weekend. Some days they'd take their bikes, some days they'd walk by foot. They'd count the amount of bugs they'd see and how many trees there were. There wasn't much they hadn't seen in that wood, or so they thought. It was a sunny Saturday morning when Olivia and Ronnie set off on their usual walk. Wellies on, coats zipped up and a piece of fruit in their pockets to keep them going. Olivia was older than Ronnie by 3 years, and so she often took charge of their walks, making sure Ronnie was safe, for he was only 2 years old, and often walking such miles felt like a marathon. As they approached the large brown trees with their sparkling green leaves and soft moss, they took a deep breath in and enjoyed the calming fresh air. Wow, Ronnie, it's very peaceful today, isn't it? Shall we sit down and eat our fruit? Ronnie gave Olivia a quizzical look. Yes, I know, she responded with a giggle, as they usually only stopped for their snack once they were halfway around their usual track. But I'm so hungry and it's so quiet. Let's sit down and enjoy the view. Olivia took off her shiny pink coat and laid it down on the wet ground for them both to sit on and started to munch away on her yummy red apple. Oh, come on, Ronnie, she said patiently. Apples are very yummy and they're good for us. Why don't you just try taking 3 bites? No, responded Ronnie quickly. Olivia sighed. It seemed no was his favourite word when it came to eating. Oh dear. Ronnie started to jump in a nearby puddle, and then she couldn't help but laugh. Wow! Gasped Ronnie as he suddenly stopped jumping and pointed in the direction of a tree. What is it, Ronnie? A bird? Olivia replied. You see, Ronnie was still learning lots of words, but as her best friend, she understood him very well. Wow, 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 Ronnie continued, and he started to tug her coat. Okay, she laughed. I'll finish my apple as we walk. She slipped her coat back on, and they started to walk their usual journey. Without warning, Ronnie ran towards the tree he was pointing at. But Olivia couldn't see anything. It's just a tree, she said. Come on, let's keep walking. Hello, came a voice from the forest. That was odd, thought Olivia. This forest was usually filled with people, but today it was so quiet. Maybe she was imagining things. Shh, they'll hear you, the voice came again. Olivia knew you should never talk to strangers, and she very tightly held Ronnie's hand. She felt a little scared, but she didn't want to show this to Ronnie and worry him. So she chatted away to him about how many bugs they'd counted so far, and she walked a little faster. Look, shouted Ronnie to Olivia, and they both stopped still in their tracks. Olivia rubbed her eyes. No, it couldn't be. Stood right before them was a bright purple unicorn. They both looked around and they couldn't believe no one was there to see it. A real unicorn. It had a long sparkly tail and a beautiful rainbow-coloured horn. "Now you've blown it," came the voice again, but it wasn't from the unicorn. "Oh, ignore him," said the unicorn, and she pointed her horn to an elf-like figure up in the shadows. "He's afraid of humans. I'm Una. Pleased to meet you." Now, you may be thinking, how strange for Olivia and Ronnie to befriend a unicorn in the middle of the woods. But this particular Saturday, it seemed they'd used a different entrance and have entered a magical world. Una introduced them to all sorts of mystical creatures living in the woodlands. Mermaids in the lakes, superheroes in the clouds, and fairies living in the trees' roots through the tiniest doors you've ever seen. Olivia learnt from the wise wizard Wayne all about being brave enough to say how you feel, to someone you feel you can trust. "But it's scary," she said, "and sometimes I'm not able to explain how I feel." "That's okay," said Wayne. "How about you try using this?" He gave her a small puppet shaped as a dog with kind blue eyes. "It's for when you feel scared or shy," he said. "You use the puppet to say your words for you. Just pop it on your hand and in front of your face. Then your puppet can talk for you." "Thank you, Wayne," Olivia said. "You're most welcome, little one," he replied in his calm voice. "Always remember, it is important for us to be able to say what is inside our heads, to express how we are feeling, and we must always remember whilst saying how we feel, to be kind to those around us." "Yum!" shouted Ronnie excitedly. As Olivia looked around, Ronnie was sat in the middle of the wood's bluebells, surrounded by 3 superheroes, and they were all munching on a glorious fruit platter. Pieces of red juicy apple, mangoes and kiwis were all included. "Do join us for our banquet, Olivia," one superhero said to her. As she walked over, she carefully popped her puppet in her pocket and sat down to join her brother. She couldn't believe her eyes. For a little boy who often said no to fruit and wouldn't finish everything on his plate, he'd scoffed the lot. "Well done, Ronnie," said one of the superheroes. "Remember, if you want to be big and strong like us, you must always finish what's on your plate, and most importantly, you must always eat your fruit and vegetables to keep you healthy." As the 2 hours passed, Olivia and Ronnie started to feel very sleepy. They'd learnt such a lot today about being kind to those around you, making sure you eat healthy foods, being able to say how we feel, and to always care about the people around you. For the mystical creatures and people they had met today had been so kind to them, sharing with them both their food and their wisdom. As Ronnie took the last bite in his apple, they sat together on the grass and watched the pixies perform their special dance. And gradually, they fell asleep. "Time to wake up, you two! I've got pancakes on the table!" their mum called, and Olivia shot up in bed with a shock. But her dream had felt so real, she thought. "Ronnie!" she shouted, to which he came running into her room with a big smile on his face. "Pancakes!" he said. "Okay," she giggled, and she made her way downstairs. As their mum put the pancakes on the table, she accompanied it with syrup, lemon and sugar and chocolate spread. "Ew! Ew!" said Ronnie, and the whole family were shocked. "Fruit!" he demanded, and Olivia smiled. Maybe it was real after all. "I'm just going to the toilet," she said, and excused herself from the table. She sneaked off and found her coat from her dream. "Please let it be here," she said, and as she put her hand into her deep pocket, she pulled out her lovely new puppet. "It wasn't a dream after all," she said. As she sat back at the table, she thanked her mum for the delicious food and was excited to eat it. Thanks, Wayne, she said. Saying what you feel isn't so said. Saying what you feel isn't so scary after all. The end.